Show your support for this channel. Do it for the bunny.
Hello everybody, in today's video I thought it would be fun to guide everyone watching on how to build a PC that won't break the bank, yet has console or even better than console performance in some cases. It occurred to me that most Five Nights at Freddy's players prefer to play their games on consoles unless it's Scott Cawthon's 2D era games, yet console gaming is becoming a more expensive hobby than even PC gaming. So whether you're a concerned parent who wants to get the best system for their kids or you've always wanted to build a rig of your own, my guide is the best place to start. Now, there are rules I want to follow for this build, and those rules are: 1. The PC has to match or be less than console prices. 2. This PC should be able to play every Five Nights at Freddy's game at least 1080p 60 frames per second on medium to low settings. A few things I should mention before getting into the build itself is that the monitor, keyboard, mouse, controller, and an operating system are not included. I do not include anything that connects externally to the case because you can find a variety of monitors, keyboards, mice, and controllers for various prices. Often these prices are so negligible that they're not even worth including in the build. Seriously, you can find a keyboard and mouse combos for like $10, a 1080p monitor for $20 if you go secondhand, and a decent controller for like under $20. You can get an operating system like Windows for free, or if you look online, you can purchase a key for anywhere around $5 to $15 if you really need to purchase Windows. Because of how much prices for these items fluctuate and they're completely custom to the user's taste in both terms of price and quality, that's why most PC building guides, including mine, don't include them. Most build guides also already assume you have an office PC with a keyboard and mouse already available. If you only have a laptop though, don't worry. The other stuff won't add much if anything at all to your budget PC build, and you can always hook up your PC to the living room TV, saving you money for just the keyboard, mouse, and controller. One last thing to bring up is you shouldn't expect this rig to be a showstopper or allow you to stream and make videos. However, this PC is upgradable, so you can save up for better parts if you want to be a budding content creator and enjoy your FNAF games in the meantime. I can't stress enough that this is the cheapest budget PC I came up with using new parts, so all it will be able to do is play games at slightly better than console quality and run videos, live streams, and social media apps. Okay, let's start this FNAF PC rig building proper, shall we? For the CPU, thread count is the most important thing. For those of you who don't know what threads are, they are the interconnecting pathways between the cores that divide and send information to them. Back in the day, the number of cores you had in your CPU determined how powerful it was. The more cores you had, the better performing the CPU, as long as the performance could keep up with the core count. Well, nowadays it's all about the thread count, and you want a CPU with at least 8 threads. For our Five Nights at Freddy's budget build, I went with a 6-core 12-thread CPU, the AMD Ryzen 5 4500. This CPU goes for around $60, but if you can find a similar performing CPU for cheaper, that's even better. What's amazing about the Ryzen 5 4500 is that this is a CPU you would find in a mid-range or even higher end build, and with 12 threads, that's more than enough performance for even the latest Five Nights at Freddy's game. You won't need to worry about upgrading this CPU for a while. I don't know how AMD manages to sell high-performing CPUs at such low prices, but we're not complaining. The AMD Ryzen 5 4500 comes stock with a CPU cooler, so you don't have to worry about purchasing one on top of that. For the motherboard, as long as it has at least 2 RAM slots and is compatible with your CPU and other parts, you should be a-okay. I've never seen a modern motherboard with only 1 RAM slot, so you shouldn't have to worry about coming across one. Keep in mind that the cheaper your motherboard is, the less reliable it becomes, but I made sure I picked a sturdy enough board for our PC. Our budget Five Nights at Freddy's rig will use an MSI B450M Pro Max 2 Micro ATX motherboard that goes for under $80. You can use a similar motherboard, but keep in mind that the one I chose is compatible with our CPU out of the box. Other motherboards around the same price might require a BIOS update before allowing you to use the Ryzen 5 4500. If the MSI B450M Pro Max 2 is not available, and I 100% absolutely cannot make this any more clear and direct enough, consult a PC specialist or look online to see if your replacement board requires a BIOS update before purchasing. When it comes to RAM, there is one simple rule to follow. The more RAM you have, the better. It doesn't matter how fast your RAM is, just how many gigabytes of information it can store at once. You also want to divide your RAM as much as possible, because the less sticks of RAM you have, the less the information can be divided up. We're only stuck with 2 RAM slots on our motherboard, but that'll still give us plenty of performance for our budget build. I went with 2 8GB sticks of DDR4 RAM, totaling up to 16 gigs for our budget Five Nights at Freddy's PC. I could have gone with 2 4GB sticks that equaled up to 8 gigs of RAM, but 16 gigs was actually cheaper for under $30. You'll notice I didn't include a brand name, and this is because most RAM sticks go for around the same price, no matter who makes them. For the hard drive, you want nothing else than an NVMe drive. They look like a stick of chewing gum and are the fastest drives to boot, literally. They are even faster than SSDs, and everything from booting up your PC to running games is blindingly fast. The hard drive you want to avoid at all costs for your main drive are mechanical hard drives. They are slow, outdated, and you will regret ever buying one. I went with a 512GB Generation 3 NVMe drive that is around $30. NVMe drives come in generations, but that isn't really all that important to our build. No matter the generation, NVMe drives are plenty fast. A fun fact, the drive I chose is compatible with the PlayStation 5. So yeah, this is a decent performing hard drive for the price, and it will hold all your Five Nights at Freddy's games no problem. The video card was kind of tricky because I thought I could get away with a 2GB video card and call it a day. However, Secret of the Mimic is most likely gonna run on Unreal Engine 5, meaning it will require a 4GB DDR5 or DDR6 video card minimum. So I went with the best and safest possible bet and went with 4 gigs of DDR6. This should allow Secret of the Mimic to run at 1080p 60 frames per second at low settings, possibly even at medium settings. I honestly have no idea. The game isn't out yet, but DDR6 gives you amazing performance even with the low memory. Our budget FNAF build has an Intel Arc A310 Eco video card, which offers its 4GB of DDR6 video memory for only $100. Now this might sound expensive if you're not familiar with GPU prices, but in terms of video cards, this is pretty cheap. This won't blow away the PC master race, but it will run all your FNAF games at blazing fast speed. Cases aren't really important when it comes to PC building. You could put your build in a shoebox if you wanted to. We want something sturdy to put all of our components in though, so we're getting a proper case. When it comes to computer cases, the cheaper you go, the harder cable management is. Cable management is important when building a PC, not just because it makes your rig look all nice and pretty, but because it helps keep all the connectors you need in check for any possible future upgrades. Unfortunately, we're getting the cheapest new case on the market that can house our motherboard, the Cooler Master Masterbox Q300L. Not all hope is lost since cable management is still possible, but it will be a little tricky. It's also a tiny case, so it will look like you're building your own home console. Hell, some of you might actually want that if you plan on putting it in your living room and hooking it up to your TV. This tiny box will challenge your patience though, as you put in your components and then manage your cables. My advice is to put your power supply in first and the cables in the back of the case before putting all your components in to make things easier. The component I purposely saved for last is the power supply, and this is because you do not want to cheap out when buying one. Since this powers the whole joint, you don't want to buy some piece of junk that will blow or quit working after a week or two. Avoid gray or beige colored power supplies at all costs. These are based on older computer systems and will not be enough to power modern rigs. Modular power supplies are the best. These allow you to connect and disconnect whichever cables you need to and from the box. Since we're building a budget gaming PC and modular power supplies are kinda expensive, we're going with something a little less customizable. Our FNAF gaming PC will have a black 550 watt ATX power supply that goes for around $30. Any fellow PC gamers and builders watching this might disagree with my choice and say that even a $30 power supply is too cheap. However, from my experience, any power supply at $30 range or higher is actually pretty durable and lasts quite a while. If you feel like you need a slightly more durable power supply, there are many you can get in the $40 range, though I don't need to tell you that it will add to the cost of your budget build. Okay, now that we're done getting all the parts together, let's see how much our Five Nights at Freddy's budget build gaming PC that will be able to play Secret of the Mimic will cost. Altogether, not including shipping, this PC will cost you a grand total of $370. Now keep in mind this is American pricing and that the cost of parts online constantly change and fluctuate. This build will stay usually around the $370 mark. And for those of you curious as to how much this rig will cost Canadian, it totals up to 684 colorful Monopoly dollars. The reason why it's so much more here in Maple Syrup Beaverland is because the Canadian dollar does not hold the same value as the American dollar, and I also had to switch out a couple of parts that weren't available online in Canada with something that costed a little more. Both PCs are basically valued the same and are a great deal for what you're gonna get in terms of performance. When comparing our budget build to consoles, the only one that beats it in terms of price is the Xbox Series S, which goes for around $300 US, $380 Canadian. However, you're getting worse specs and performance for that price compared to our budget PC. While the Xbox Series S has a 16-thread processor, it only has 10 gigabytes of DDR6 RAM. Only 2 of those 10 gigs are dedicated to video memory. And while our PC only has 12 threads, it boasts an impressive 20 gigs of RAM over the Series S 8 gigs. 4 gigs of DDR6 are dedicated to video, while 16 gigs of DDR4 are dedicated to system memory. From what I've seen online, Five Nights at Freddy's Security Breach runs horribly on the Xbox Series S at 30 frames per second with constant frame dips. Now I admit I could be wrong, I never played Security Breach on an Xbox console and wasn't able to mess around with it on the Series S myself. If it's true that the Series S only runs Security Breach at sub 30 frames per second, then yeah, our PC can definitely outperform it and run the game at a solid 60 frames per second. You will ultimately be getting more for your money and way better performance than the Series S despite paying a little more. The only other console that could beat our PC in terms of price is the Nintendo Switch. I'm talking the original Switch, not the Switch 2. However, and this is a big ass however, that's only if Secret of the Mimic gets a Switch 1 port. The Switch goes for $260 US, $400 Canadian. I highly doubt Secret of the Mimic is getting a Switch 1 port, and even if it does, every 3D Five Nights at Freddy's game from Help Wanted all the way to Help Wanted 2 runs at sub 30 frames per second and worse quality than even on the Series S. It's nowhere near as good of a deal even if Secret of the Mimic gets ported over there. Building a budget PC for Five Nights at Freddy's is the ideal way to go. Sure, it costs a little more than the Series S, but the performance is better, and best of all, you can mod your games to your liking to give you a better experience than what console can offer. This whole entire video had background footage of me playing Security Breach on PC modded. I've modded in 2 Roxy mommies. I know, I'm very subtle about Roxanne being my favorite animatronic. Made Chica and Roxy a little thicker, replaced the enemy animatronic strict pathfinding with the ability to free roam, and replaced Monty with Glamrock Bonnie because of course I would. I encourage everyone to build a budget PC, or what we PC gamers call a starter build. You can always upgrade your PC with better parts and add more storage. Tell me in the comments below, what did you come up with for your own budget FNAF build? Are there any ways you would improve the build I came up with? Do you think consoles are the better way to go despite the drop in frame rates and quality? Don't forget to like the video, leave a comment because I enjoy talking with people and receiving critiques on how I can improve my videos, and if you like what I do, definitely don't forget to subscribe so you can catch more of my content as I upload it. Most importantly, thank you for watching this far because it has made you my shining star.